Hello, pickleballers. Today I am joined by Katy Luxem, who is the founder of Big Dill Pickleball. Katy, nice to have you on the podcast.
Thanks for having me. It's good to be here.
And so let's just get right into it. How did you start playing this sport with a wiffle ball and a paddle? Like, how did that come about?
Yeah, so I'm probably a little bit unique in that I played as a child. I'm actually from Seattle originally, which of course is where pickleball was invented. So I grew up playing in like PE and, there were a few courts around. I probably thought it was more mainstream than it was. But anyway, I was aware of it and have been aware of it for a really long time and saw it kind of having this resurgence, right? And then like a lot of people, I started playing a lot during the pandemic. So that was kind of how I discovered it.
And when did you kind of notice this more recent resurgence?
Yeah, definitely living in Utah. I also was pretty into playing roller derby and was really passionate about it. And I ended up breaking both ankles in 2019. So after that, I retired from roller derby and I was like, pickleball was kind of a fun place to land because you can play if you're, maybe not as athletic as you once were. You can play with all ages, all abilities. So I kind of really got into it at that point. And then obviously it really took off kind of during the pandemic. And I think a lot of people were joining because of that aspect, right? You could play with all sorts of ages and your kids and your grandparents. And, even if you're not super, super athletic, it's still really fun and you can still be competitive about it.
And then when did you decide to take it to the next level and found a pickleball company? What has that journey been like?
Yeah, so from the business side, my background is in e-commerce. I worked for Amazon in the US and the UK, and also as a consultant for a number of brands in like an e-commerce space, specifically on Amazon. And in 2020, I could see a lot of people were kind of coming to Amazon for their initial pickleball purchase. There's a lot of, sets and like cheaper things on there. And I just kind of, as myself looking at what I would buy, I wasn't finding anything super appealing. And I just felt like with my experience, I could make something better and be really more about the brand and what we represent and also provide better content and better service and just kind of a more fun design. I think a lot of the paddles out there that beginner and intermediate and recreational players are buying are pretty like they look like the side of an RV. They're just black and they have a swoop of color. And I was like, nothing really spoke to the fun, appealing, sort of inclusive element that is why so many people joined pickleball in the first place. So that was when I kind of was like, I'm going to make something that's quality, but kind of fun and, functional at the same time.
And I think that speaks really to me too, because when I first started playing pickleball, it was probably like 6 years ago. And my first two paddles looked like the side of an RV. So I know exactly what you're talking about when you say that. And you guys produce some pretty unique, pretty cool paddles. And I think it could speak to young people and just people in general that like the fun vibe of pickleball.
For sure. I think a lot of people will play with like a friend or a neighbor on the weekend or something. And then they're like, oh, I'm going to jump online and get my own paddle. And, compared to a lot of stuff out there, ours kind of stands out, makes you smile. It's unique, but it's also like a legit paddle. Like it's fun, but it's not a joke. It's still USA Pickleball approved. We still make stuff with high quality materials and there's options and education about different surface types and what, but it's still like fun and it still kind of like makes you smile. And I just think a lot of people have really a lot of fun with pickleball and are playing with their kids or their, college friends or something and maybe don't want to buy a $250 paddle right off the bat. So it's definitely an option for that player.
Yeah, it makes sense because I first got into pickleball because I didn't want to play tennis, or I tried to play tennis, but I just couldn't gather the right people. So then I went into pickleball, which already had a great community. And that's kind of what spoke to me at first, this fun-loving, just very friendly, outgoing community. And that's kind of what your brand symbolizes to me, especially with the paddle. But my pickleball journey, it's always been community driven, but there was a point, and I guess still now, where I wanted to get better. And talking about that your paddles are still legit, could you talk about more of what your paddles have to offer for somebody that still wants to have fun and likes the surface, but also wants to be getting better as a player? And paddles kind of help you a little bit go to the next level, I would say.
Yeah, so our two main paddles, the two that we launched with, one is the fiberglass paddle, and it's an infinity, and it's kind of a wide body paddle. It's really good for just like power. It's really nicely balanced. It's not too heavy. It's a mid-weight paddle. And it just feels really good in your hand and feels really high quality. And then similarly, we have a carbon fiber paddle that is the same thing. It's the green one with the pickle popping out of the handle. And it also is really high quality. It feels good. It's mid-weight as well. It's kind of covers a lot of different types of play, but people who like control and are, learning to finesse their dinks a little more, or kind of just getting that that control over what you're doing, that's a great paddle for them. We also have like a higher end paddle that is really good for people who are kind of progressing in their pickleball journey, but maybe, again, don't want to spend $250. It's commensurate with something that's much more expensive, but it's got a rough surface and it's a longer face, so it's got that extra reach, and just a little bit like taking it up a notch. So we try to cover like all the bases and try and have something for everyone. We also have wooden paddles for Amazon sets that people are buying for their kids and whatnot, so those are fun as well. I think a lot of people also like to buy like a starter pack set, so we also offer like the 2 paddles and a 2-pack set with balls and a bag, and those are our most popular ASINs as well, so or sets as well.
And that's how I first started. I had a set that I bought, so it makes sense to offer a set, and I could see why that's your biggest seller.
Yeah, it's been really cool too, because it has a pickle on it, obviously, it makes a nice like face of pickleball. And so for that reason, it's been featured in a lot of cool press. Like we've been in the New York Times, Forbes, USA Today magazine, Men's Health. Like it's kind of like, let's talk about this pickleball craze. And then one of our paddles is kind of like, hey, we're representing pickleball. So kind of fun in that respect too.
In talking about kind of the future of pickleball, especially from a manufacturing standpoint, what have you guys done differently from when you first started? I know you said that you have like a higher end paddle. Is that kind of taken in the new, like just going to carbon fiber into consideration? And where do you kind of see the evolution of paddles going?
Yeah, I definitely see a lot more competition, a lot more options, people coming out with just tons of different designs. And I think there's also been an evolution of technology. You see, some of the higher end paddle brands doing different things that kind of filter down. For us, like being an Amazon first company, I was really focused on the customer and providing something super high quality. It's not a great experience to have to like return something that breaks, or to get something and it doesn't look like what you actually thought you were buying. So for us to start, I kind of wanted to start off on the right foot, and I got just like a ton of samples from pretty much every manufacturer out there. Just different, widths, thicknesses, handle lengths, edgeless, non-edgeless, just different surfaces, different textures, and kind of found ones that felt like a happy medium between everything that like was something people were searching for. A lot of people search for carbon fiber paddles, and then just kind of went from there and found something that was reputable and that I'd actually stand by the quality of. So that was kind of where we went with that. And then just as we've gone on, we've tried to keep we don't want to offer like a ton of different designs, because we're Amazon first and we want that to be the ones that people gravitate towards. I think that's a mistake a lot of businesses make, is just the same thing with a bunch of different designs, because you can't really support the growth of that. So we've tried to do that. And then, we have, then the high end one, we were like, maybe we should make something without a pickle on it, just for people who've been playing, a few years and maybe want something different. And same deal, we just tried to get a bunch of different options and see what we liked as players, and then what made sense for the business. And I think we still try to get, we have a lot of manufacturers we're in touch with, so we'll try to get like their latest samples. We just got something that's like a flax surface. It's like more eco-friendly. So there's lots of different things that are coming out, and I think the technology, now that pickleball is so popular, is moving really quick.
Where do you kind of see the evolution of materials or pickleball paddles going? Because it seems like it's more of a talked about on the pro level, and I know you're kind of maybe marketing not necessarily toward pros, but toward just the average rec player, I would say. But even your paddles, I'm sure, will change in the future. So what do you anticipate that looking like?
Yeah, I definitely think like more choice and more individualized for people's playing styles. There isn't a lot that's tailored to like women or, different playing styles. I also think as people get more into the sport, they're going to want to have stuff that is a little more technical, like, a rough surface and a lighter weight, or playing with that, like the dimensions. What can you do that's still USA Pickleball approved? I don't know like how much it can change with the sound wise, but a lot of people always ask us like, oh, are you trying to make a quieter paddle? And I don't know that that's actually going to happen, but I could see someone trying to do something like that, or I could see some evolution there just because it seems like it's been a hot button issue. I don't see it as like a huge thing, but people always talk about it for sure. Yeah.
Where do you see, just in general, forget about paddle manufacturing, but the game going to? Like, what are you all at Big Dill preparing for, and where do you kind of see this thing taking off to in the next few years?
I can definitely see it growing internationally. Obviously, it started in Seattle and it's kind of spread to the US. We're definitely seeing more interest abroad. We've had like a club contact us from London, and we've had purchases in like Jamaica, Mexico. I mean, I think they play like paddle that like like there's other places, paddle. There's other places in the world that play like are focused on that. I could definitely see it growing internationally a lot though, just because it is a little more accessible. I follow like Pickleball Egypt on Instagram, and they play like over there, and it's kind of like a clay court, it's interesting. So it'll be fun to see how quickly it grows internationally and if it really takes root abroad. But yeah, we're already seeing a bit of that, and I could definitely see that going. And then I also just think it will continue to grow a lot in the US. There's still a lot of people that haven't played yet, and I think the vast majority of those players will be recreational players. I think they're saying like 90% of players will play less than 8 times a year. And I can definitely see that being key for us as a brand that's tailored to that recreational beginner element. But yeah, I don't know. Other than that, it's really projected to grow fast. So it'll be curious to see how quickly it grows and if it meets that expectation.
And the great thing is, like kind of like what you're saying, is that just accessibility, and you really just need a net in a flat surface, and you could tape your own lines if need be. But I mean, that's got to just be, given those circumstances, you could theoretically play just about anywhere.
Yeah, totally. We've had people play out on the salt flats and send us pictures in Salt Lake City, and I think people have played like on the beach and stuff. We took our paddles to Paris with us when we played. We played in front of the Eiffel Tower. So there weren't courts there, but you could definitely, hit around, and people were like, "What are you doing?" So kind of fun to see.
That's cool. So are you in Salt Lake City now?
Yeah, I am. That's where we're based.
So going from Seattle to Salt Lake, I played in Salt Lake once, and after 2 games, I was gassed, and I didn't know why. I was extremely tired. Then I realized the altitude. Are you just totally used to it by now, or is that still something that you feel when you're on the court?
I think I'm used to it by now. We've lived here for 5 years, and I play pickleball like 4 times a week, so I've gotten pretty used to it. But I definitely see, just I'll have people come from out of town and play, or like we'll go hiking or something, and you kind of forget about that aspect, right? But then you're like, oh yeah, that's the altitude for sure. So definitely, and I feel like people take pickleball pretty seriously here, so that's maybe an aspect too. Like it's just fast paced sometimes, and there's that element too.
In the Utah crowd, as far as PPA tournaments go, you guys are just absolutely electric. Why does pickleball work so well in Utah?
I think a couple of reasons. One, the climate's pretty conducive to it. Like even during the winter, it's blue skies, even though it's cold. Also, you have, St. George down south where it's warm year round. So that's part of it. I think you also have people that have a lot of like multi-generational households or families, bigger families. And it's such a good sport for that type of person, right? Like I'm going to get out on the court with the whole family, like the grandparents, the kids, whatever. So I think there's just a lot more casual fans and people that are interested. And then it kind of filters up from there, right? Like, oh, now we'll go to this PPA tournament, or we'll go see this tournament, or we'll play in this rec tournament, or there's just a lot of opportunities to play and a lot of opportunities to see it. And I think it's just really kind of fed that, that momentum that pickleball's already got, especially for us, we see like a lot of sales, particularly in like California, Texas, Utah, Florida, like Sunbelt states. So I think it definitely is part of that.
Cool. And what do you want, going back to Big Dill Pickleball, what do you want pickleball fanatics or people that are kind of intrigued by your brand, what do you want them to know about Big Dill Pickleball?
Yeah, so I think we are aiming to be the go-to brand for beginner and intermediate players. So many people come to the sport because it's accessible and fun. And then, like I said, the gear doesn't really match that vibe. So I think just making something that is accessible, fun, matches the fun vibe of pickleball, and then is also still high quality. And we're available on our website, Amazon, Walmart, and also some like smaller brick and mortar retailers. So it's just kind of another option for people that want to have fun, want to get out there, and don't take it too seriously.
Well, I think that kind of wraps up our interview. And I was curious, where can people find you in the Big Dill Pickleball?
Yeah, you can find us at bigdillpickleballcompany.com. We're also on Amazon. If you search Big Dill Pickleball, you'll see us. We're on Walmart.com, and then there's a few shops in Las Vegas, Colorado, Utah that we're in locally as well.
Cool. Well, I want to thank you for coming on to the podcast today. I think you guys are great for the pickleball community, kind of introducing new players to the game. That's something that we're definitely passionate about, and I know that you want to see this sport grow as much as I do. So once again, thank you, and thank you to Big Dill Pickleball for kind of your mission of growing the sport and helping beginners and intermediate players.
Yeah, thanks so much. Find us on Instagram as well if anyone wants to take a look or connect, and thanks for having us and helping share our mission.